Welcome back to the Fun Time program. I am your co-host, John Andrew Fredrickson, here with my beautiful co-host, Vivica Volt.
Howdy.
Today is National Voter Registration Day. So naturally, we are going to be doing a deep dive into voting in the United States, what that means, why it's important, and how you can go about doing it and making sure that you are registered, making sure that you are ready to vote, making sure you understand what the deadlines are, how you can go about voting during COVID, since things are going to be a little bit different this year. I'm excited to be doing this because all of this different information I've been hearing about how voting is going to be different during COVID has made me a little bit nervous and thinking, do I need to get mail-in ballots ready? Can I go to the polls? Is there going to be early voting? People are talking about voting early and in person, which to me sounded like those are two different things. I thought that early meant it was you're doing an absentee ballot, you get your ballot, you send it in early, you're done. But it turns out there's actually
different thing. Yeah.
There's actually like in-person early voting that's happening. So even though I consider myself fairly informed when it comes to these kinds of things, even this year, I was realizing I need to do a deep dive into this and get to the bottom of this and find out what is going on with voting this year, and how can we make sure that more people are getting to the polls and more people are having their voices heard and affecting our elections. So Vivica,
Yeah.
how are you feeling about voting this year?
I'm pretty excited. Not necessarily that I'm excited about my choices or that I'm necessarily excited about the potential outcomes, but I'm mostly just excited because my best friend registered to vote for the first time in her entire life.
That's awesome.
And she and I are going to get to vote together, which is really exciting. So
Shout out to best friend, whoever you are.
woo woo.
Wait, it's not me.
I mean, you're pretty up there.
Just kidding.
But we are going to get to vote together because we're going to.
No, we're not. Maybe we'll go and support each other, but we are actually in different districts.
Very different districts, yeah.
I get to vote for AOC this year.
I'm so jealous.
Are you a little?
I'm very jealous. Yeah, I wanted to vote for her, but she's not in my district.
I'm mostly just excited to vote for her to make other people in the country upset that I voted for her, because that's maybe my favorite thing about her. But that's a topic for another day. How important is it to go and vote, even when you're not excited about all the candidates that are on the ballot?
This year, it's more important than ever, which is surprising to say, because in years past, we've always had situations where, especially in blue states like New York, it didn't really matter if you were voting blue in a blue state or if you're voting red in a red state. It didn't really seem to make much difference. But this year, especially because of COVID, there has been a significant change in voting demographics, especially in New York City, because you have had a lot of people who have unfortunately been evicted, a lot of people who have left because they didn't have jobs here anymore or what have you. So New York, which is a state that has been consistently blue, specifically because New York has been so blue for so long, is actually now in peril as far as whether or not we may actually stay blue for this particular election.
Where have you heard that? That's the first that I've heard this.
Yeah.
New York's in peril of going red?
Not completely red, but like
Do you mean like statewide?
Statewide, yes, but
Okay.
usually because there's a lot of red counties in upstate New York.
Yeah, for sure.
But the reason that the state stays so blue is because New York City, which is an overwhelming majority of the population statewide, is
Right.
always so blue. But New York City itself is not as blue as it has been in years past because of COVID.
Right.
So if New York City doesn't stay as blue as it normally does, the state itself may not be as blue as everyone thinks.
But
it
talk
should be.
to me about the importance, though, of getting to the polls, even when you're not excited about the candidates. Because I'll never forget the first big election that I remember, being born in 1986. The first big election that I remember was 2000. I was maybe 14 in that year, and you're just starting to become aware of politics. And at that age, you're still a little kind of, I don't know, not taking it seriously. I remember South Park made a great episode where the school mascots were running for election, and it was against a giant douche and a
turd
sandwich. And that felt like the best description of the presidential election. And as a 14-year-old, you don't understand local elections. You don't understand, the importance of getting out there and making your voice heard, even if it feels like it's a giant douche and a turd sandwich. and when you look at what happened with the Bush win in 2000, it came down to one state Florida, and it came down to 537 votes. That was so close they had to do a recount, which went to the Supreme Court. There was a whole hullabaloo. At the end of the day, Bush ends up winning with 0.009% of the vote. That is such a tiny number of people. And then you go and you look at the 8 years of the Bush presidency, and I'm not an expert on Gore. I don't really know what Gore stood for because I wasn't aware enough during that election. But something tells me that even if it felt like Bush and Gore were a turd sandwich and a giant douche or whatever the South Park thing was, it feels to me like maybe it kind of did matter. And, getting to the polls would have been a very important thing in that year. And what's even more important to remember is that that's only on the national level. When it comes to the local elections, some of these elections are won, by the smallest number of margins. And some of these elections are won where people are going to the polls and they don't even know who they're voting for. Yeah. I just did the research on my district. If you just Google who's on my ballot, you end up on a website. I think it's Vote 411 or one of these websites. We'll put all the links in the description. But if you just Google that, who's on my ballot, you can get to a website where you put in your information. It tells you who's going to be on your ballot. And I discovered there are 17 people running for state Supreme Court justice. There are 5 incumbents, so maybe that means that 5 of them are going to be elected out of 17. I don't know any of these people. I Googled every single one of these people.
And there's almost no information about them.
There's nothing. It simply says they went to this law school. Maybe they've been on the Supreme Court for this many years already. Maybe they're running. Maybe this is their background. There's nothing. And so then you start researching some of the organizations that might care about this. Let's say Black Lives Matter, for example, right? They're all about justice for the Black community. And that the judges, you would think, would be super important.
Yeah.
And there's no information on their website about the judges in these local elections. And it seems like there's such a missed opportunity there. So at the very least, go out there and do the research. But what we want to try to figure out, and we're going to do more research on this, is how to find organizations that care about the things that you care about and find out what they recommend doing in a situation like that. So we're going to do more episodes like this where we talk to people that maybe know more about this than we do. But at the very least, we're excited to talk about the different things, that are important to understand when it comes to what your rights are as a voter, what the deadlines are, and what you need to be paying attention to over the next, 6 weeks away from November 3rd?
I know. I can't believe it. It feels like the first half of 2020 was 7 years long, and the second half of 2020 has been like 5 weeks long. It's
do you remember 2016? Doesn't that feel like it was somewhat of a watershed moment in our lives where things kind of changed?
Yeah, I mean, I remember November 4th.
It was the 4th that year, right?
Like, I remember that day very clearly, and I remember the impending sense of dread that never went away since that day.
I was convinced it was a dream. Like, I was convinced I was going to go to sleep and wake up and be like, this isn't it was just so weird. It was the Twilight Zone. But
we're in the worst timeline.
But that 4-year time period that seemed like, oh my God, we're in for 4 years of Trump. I don't want to say it's almost over.
I hope so.
But at least it's reaching the end of the current chapter of it, whatever it is. And we have an opportunity is it 6 weeks from now? We should look at something like that.
Yeah.
We're actually going to be going to the polls and getting a say in whether or not we want to continue with this presidency, as well as the other local elections. So I'm really excited for that.
Yeah, me too. I'm really, really, really hoping that not only do we vote him out by an overwhelming majority, but I know this is being incredibly optimistic. I really hope we can vote Mitch McConnell out. He is up for re-election.
I don't even want to talk about that election because it makes me nervous.
It's so unlikely at this point because they should have backed Charles Booker, but
well, yeah, that's a conversation for another day. Looking at Lindsey Graham running in South Carolina, and his contender is Jamie Harrison, I think, who is looking really strong. He's doing really well, but it's still South Carolina, and who knows?
Someone like Mark Kelly running in Arizona.
We're very excited about that election, the Senate election in Arizona.
Elect an astronaut. Come on,
that would make my year.
Make a hero a hero.
Mark Kelly is a real American hero, and I would love to see him in the Senate. That would be really exciting. So there's a lot of exciting elections that are happening around the country, but the most important elections at the end of the day are the local elections that are going to be happening in your district. So make sure that you go online, you go to Google, you check who is on my ballot, and you do some research on those people, because it actually does make a difference to walk into the voting booth and not just go in there saying, I want to vote against Donald Trump,
And that's all you vote for.
And that's all you vote for.
Yeah.
And then you're going to just vote, whatever, just Democrat down the ticket. But actually, pay attention to who's on there, because you might end up in a situation where you are choosing between 17 different Supreme Court justices,
and you have no idea what they do.
You don't know what any of them stand for.
Yeah.
And I don't want to be in that situation this year, and I don't want you guys to be in that situation. So make sure that you take the time to research who's going to be on your ballot and trying to find out more information about them. And we're going to do our research now to figure out what to do in the situation when you can't find any information on them.
Yeah,
So
absolutely.
stay tuned for that episode. I'm excited to find out more about that.
But also make sure you vote in your off-year elections. Just because voting in the national election is very important, it's also really important to vote in your off-year elections for the local things, especially for things like county sheriff and local judges, district attorneys and attorney generals. We want to make sure that the people who have a lot of control over our actual counties and our actual cities are people that actually represent us.
That's absolutely right.
A lot of county sheriffs run unopposed, which is a big problem. And county sheriffs have a surprising amount of power over your county and your city. So, you want to make sure that that particular sheriff is someone that you actually want running your city.
That's right. So the important thing to remember is, we spend all this time absorbed in the news and the things that are happening, not just on our local level, but on the national level. And we often feel powerless. We often feel like things are happening and they're outside of our control. And we can have an opinion on them. We can talk about them on Facebook. We can share links on Twitter. We can engage with our coworkers about it. But sometimes it just feels like it's all out of our control. Well, guess what?
Now it is in our control.
You have a say. And even if it feels like your vote isn't going to make a huge difference, the difference between you getting into the polls and casting your vote and showing the political establishment that they have to pay attention to your opinion because you're going to continue showing up, that makes all the difference. Because then people who are running for office, they have to show up in your district, they have to show up on your street, and they have to care about what you and people like you think. And so the numbers at the end of the day, it's not about winning every single race. It's about showing up. It's about being at the polls, and it's about being represented in the numbers so that the people who do run down the road know that they have to give a fuck about you and people like you. And that's really what it is at the end of the day. And how important is it to remember that voting, we kind of take it for granted today. Growing up in the country that we grow up in today, it wasn't always like that.
Nope. There was a very long history in America where the only people who could vote were white male landowners.
Not even just white males, but like you had to own property.
And then it expanded a little bit to just white men, and then it expanded a little bit further to white men and white women, and then finally it expanded a little bit further than that and allowed all people, including people of color and indigenous people, to vote as well. So now we actually have voting available to all people in the United States across the board. So I think it's something that we should absolutely not take for granted, and we should respect our ancestors in that capacity. And even if we don't think that our vote is going to be counted, even if we don't think we're actually going to be heard, it's better to try than to just be nihilistic about it and just say, well, whatever, my vote is going to get thrown out anyway. It doesn't matter.
But again, by voting, you force people who run in future elections to pay attention to you and people like you. Because even if your vote doesn't matter in this election, when people see that, hey, this election was won by this number of votes and these are the people that voted, they're going to have to go into those communities and they're going to have to talk to those people, and they're going to have to pay attention to them. And it's only through voting that you regain that power, that you cast your ballot. It's just like putting your name on the census. You know what I mean? If you don't stand up and say, hey, I'm here and I am an enfranchised member of this community, people aren't going to pay attention to you when they're running for offices of power that have vast decision-making ability over things that matter to your life.
Right. Exactly. But also, like, what else about voting is actually important? Like, why bother showing up when, I mean, there's so many better things I could be doing. I could like just vote for something on Reddit, right?
That's so interesting. So Reddit's running this great campaign where they're kind of trying to point out that we spend all this time on social media, voting on social media. We like posts on Facebook. We like things on Twitter. We
What's your Harry Potter
things.
house?
We upvote things on Reddit, and Reddit's been publishing these billboards, buying advertisement around the country and in all these different areas, and putting up these Reddit posts, pictures of Reddit posts, and basically saying that, like, if this banana, we should put these on the screen because they're. Let me just pull them up right now. If Reddit votes counted in real life, this banana could have been elected to Congress in 2018. As you see, this banana got 146,000 votes on Reddit. It's just a picture of a banana in a guy's hand. It's
a nice looking banana.
Yeah.
Don't get us wrong.
The point is,
no spots.
If the congressional elections in 2018 were won by fewer votes than this.
Yep.
Here's another one. It's got two different pictures. If this mouse on a mouse, it's a picture of a mouse on a computer mouse. If this mouse got 109 more, this mouse got 109 more votes than it took to decide the 2000 presidential election. This mouse got 646 votes. That's 109 more votes
than it took to elect Bush in Florida.
It's nuts. You know, so people are online. We're making our voices heard in things that really don't affect anything. Mm-hmm. And here we have an opportunity to do it in an election. Here's another one. If you can vote for this United Steak of America, it's a picture of a steak that looks like the United States, a map of the United States of America.
It's pretty cool.
You should vote for Real America too. It got 564 votes. Where can 564 votes make an absolutely huge difference in your life? It's at the polls on November 3rd. So make sure that you guys show up. So what are the different dates that are important leading up to this election, right?
Yeah.
Today is National Voter Registration Deadline. Mm-hmm. What does that mean?
Okay, so our National Voter Registration Deadline. So National Voter Registration Day is basically the day, like, to make sure you're getting out there, getting your vote, your voter registration taken care of, because voting deadlines are coming up really, really soon.
Registration deadlines.
Yes. So a lot of registration deadlines are 15 to 30 days before an election.
And remember, this depends on which state you're in.
Right.
So we're going to put links in the description for you to look this up for your specific state. But the most important thing is treat it as 30 days before the election. Like,
just assume.
Get yourself registered 30 days before the election. What does that mean?
The
election's on November 3rd.
Yep.
Think of the deadline as being October 3rd, which is a Saturday. So really think of it as being October 2nd, Friday, which is like, what is that, next week?
Yeah.
That's next Friday.
That's weird.
Guys,
I hate that. I mean, I love it because Halloween, but like, it's weird that it's already October.
If you do not register by that deadline, you will not be able to vote. I think there's one state that allows you to vote without registering. I think it's DC. Which is not a state.
Right.
We can just walk into the polls and be like, province. I'm ready to vote. I didn't do anything to prepare and I'm going to do it anyway. And they let you do it. But assume that's not true for you.
Yeah. Just assume that you have to actually register to vote. So you want to make sure you get your voter registration taken care of as late as October 2nd, but the sooner the better. And that's why you have Voter Registration Day today as kind of a bring awareness to make sure that everyone's getting registered.
That's right.
So the voter registration deadline for New York State is actually October 9th.
Yes. So it's a week later, but don't wait that long. Get it done right now. Get it done right now while you're listening to this podcast. Get on your phone, open up Google, and just type into Google, register to vote. And they're going to walk you through, they're going to take you to the right website, they're going to take you to your state's website, you enter in your information, and boom, you're registered in less than 5 minutes. Go and do it right now.
Absolutely. One of the other dates that we want to make sure we address is the absentee ballot request date.
That's right.
So you want to make sure you get, if you're not going to go vote in person and you want to do a mail-in ballot, otherwise known as an absentee ballot, you want to make sure you request that no later than October 24th. However, the USPS has said because of a lot of the delays that they've been having, you want to get it in as late as October 15th.
So really a week earlier than the deadline.
Right.
Because here's the thing. You can request your ballot, and if it doesn't get back in time, even if you request your ballot early enough, and for some reason there's delays at the USPS and it doesn't get back in time for you to fill it out and postmark it by November 3rd, which is the deadline to do that, you're screwed.
Right.
You've just missed your vote. You can still go vote in person, I think.
Yeah, you can,
after requesting an absentee ballot.
You can vote in person even if you request an absentee ballot, but that also might be state dependent. So make sure you check your local state laws, because in New York you can, but that doesn't necessarily mean that you can in other states.
So write down October 15th. If you're planning to request an absentee ballot, get your request postmarked and sent before October 15th. And you can do that by checking your local state's absentee ballot request page.
Some states, like Colorado, automatically send everyone a mail-in ballot.
Fantastic. I love that. There's a great website, actually. I have a link to it here.
Yeah.
Let me pull it up. That shows all the different deadlines and requirements for absentee ballots for each individual state. And I don't see it here. Anyway, we'll put a link in the description. We'll probably put it up on the screen, and you can see exactly which states, have what requirements. I love that some states, they send absentee ballots or voting ballots to every single person in the state, regardless of whether they requested them.
Yep.
And all you got to do is fill it out and send it back in. You don't even have to go vote in person. It's amazing. It's not even an absentee ballot. It's just a ballot. That's amazing. Wouldn't it be great if every state did that?
Oh, absolutely. But also you mentioned earlier that you didn't know that early voting was something that could happen in person.
Is that a normal thing? Has that always been early voting? Or is that only for COVID?
I mean, I'm not 100% sure. I think it might be something that has happened before COVID, but I have always just voted on the day of. So I haven't really paid
that's got to be a COVID thing.
Maybe it's a COVID thing. I mean, they're definitely doing it in COVID times to make sure that there's not too many people overwhelming the voting places. The polls, that is the word I'm looking for, that they're not overwhelming the polls, so that people can stay socially distanced.
Exactly.
So you have different days where voter registration gets started. But in New York, it's starting as early as
October 24th.
Yeah, October 24th.
Which is a full week before the election. It's a little over a week before the election. That's a Saturday. And it's going to be 10 a.m. to 4 p.m. And then it's going to run every day after that. Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. And then I guess there's nothing on the 2nd. And then you can also vote on the 3rd. So that means for a little over a week leading up to the election, every single day in New York City, you can go and you can vote just once.
Yes, just once.
But any of those days you can pick. Just once.
Make your vote count one time.
But yes, the important thing to remember is you don't have to wait until November 3rd. You can go and cast your vote as early as a week and a half early. And that is going to be true in most states. We'll put links up in the description so that you can check what it's going to look like in your state. Of course, Google is your friend here. Just
Absolutely.
Google early voting in your state and you'll figure out how to do that. The important thing is also to recognize where your voting location is. And that's another thing that's going to be based on the district that you're in and your address. So,
and your voting or your early voting location may actually be different from your regular voting location. So you want to look that up and make sure that they're not slightly different.
That's a good point. And that's here on this website for New York City as well. So yeah, make sure that you're looking that up. The best part about voting early, though, is if you go to the polls and there's any problem, your name's not on the list, you're at the wrong location, guess what? You got another day to do it. So start as early as possible. Make sure that you get it done quickly. And that way, you have a chance to fix whatever issues if you got the location wrong or whatever. So that's really refreshing. And that should take some of the pressure off of people who, maybe voting for the first time.
Yep. Like my friend.
Exactly. I think I saw a statistic. I don't remember what the exact number was, but the likelihood of someone voting goes up so drastically after they voted once.
Yep.
So getting somebody to the polls for the first time,
they're much more likely to do it again.
Such a huge win. So if you can talk to your friends about the importance of going to vote, mention some of the things that we mentioned here today. It's not just about winning this specific election, even though I think this specific election is kind of important.
It's a little important. It's a little on the important side.
It's about getting the numbers up in your district, making people recognize that somebody who looks like you, whatever other, do they take demographics? They don't take demographics in an actual
I don't think they do. I mean, they do
what they
some
know
demographics.
they know your address, they know where you're from, and the next time somebody's running, they're going to have to pay just that much more attention to your district and your community. And that means your community's voice is going to be heard, whether it's on the national level with national elections or on the local level with local elections. That's so important. So talk to your friends, get your, and the other thing I read is that this is a sales thing. I hate sales, but you have to learn how to do it when you're a creative entrepreneur and you're building your own business. You got to learn how to talk to people and convince them to work with you. It takes, I think I saw when it comes to convincing a new voter to get to the polls, it takes something like 5 to 10 conversations with them. So don't think of it as one conversation and boom, you're done. Either you convinced them or you didn't. Keep talking to them.
Yeah.
Keep reminding them, hey,
Pester
by the way,
your friends.
By the way, are you registered?
Make it a party.
Are you registered?
Speaking of parties, have you heard about the voter party
I haven't.
that's happening here in Brooklyn?
Tell me about it.
So some wonderful creative people some of them are involved in House of Yes. Some of them are just creative people who used to be party promoters and party curators, have created a actual roaming party that's moving around in the streets where people are dressed up in fun costumes and look incredibly fun and engaging. They've got music playing. It's basically a dance party on the sidewalk where they're also registering people to vote.
That's amazing.
So, I mean,
I
why
assume
not?
they're socially distancing. They're
Absolutely.
wearing masks. Like let's get that out of the way because I know
very carefully.
I know some people are having those questions right away.
Just wear your masks.
Yeah, masks are still important, guys.
A little callback to our first episode.
Yes. Yes, indeed. Yeah. So we are excited about the next few weeks leading up to this election. We have reached out to several different organizations that work with voter suppression issues.
Like Stacey Abrams.
Black Lives Matter movement, which is obviously advocating for bringing about not just awareness to the issues that the Black community is facing, but also ways that we can bring about change in the legislature, change at the national and the local level when it comes to elections. And so obviously, you know, who you vote for, it makes a big difference in that capacity. So hopefully we're going to be talking to somebody from that organization as well.
Also Justice Democrats,
who has done an amazing job of pushing very progressive candidates to
like
the forefront,
AOC.
Getting them elected and finding people to run in some of these elections that previously, I mean, AOC is such an amazing example because it's not about just showing up to the polls, right? It's about how do we find the right people to run for these elections because Joe Crowley, was that his name?
Yeah, I think so.
The Democrat, he was maybe like the number 3rd ranking Democrat in the House who was in line to eventually maybe succeed Nancy Pelosi as the Speaker of the House at some point, had been in that seat since like 1993 or something.
Yeah, he'd been there forever,
and had been running unopposed. So it's like you'd show up to vote and it's just the same white dude who's been in there for forever and basically doesn't care about what you think because
he knows he's going to win.
So he becomes more susceptible to lobbying, to other interests that aren't necessarily reflective of what the people in that district care about. So getting people like AOC to vote, that's why these organizations like the Justice Democrats, who are identifying people who can bring new energy and new excitement to some of these positions and, you know, enable more competitive elections to be happening so that at the end of the day, our vote counts that much more. So we're going to be talking to organizations like that over the next few weeks. We're really excited to be doing this deep dive into voting and into the importance of voting and into the other ways that we can get involved in our local communities and make a difference, not just at the ballot box, but in leading up to it. And today it's all about making sure that you are registered, making sure that your friends are registered, talking to your family and friends. Don't make it about politics. Don't make it about, I want you to vote because I think you should vote for this person.
No,
because maybe you disagree on that one person, but still getting
make your voice heard.
Getting people to the polls is so important. So just talk to people about the importance of registering today and understanding what the deadlines are for absentee ballot voting if they want to do that, as well as early voting in your district. So get out there, rock the vote. Is that still a campaign that's happening? Wasn't that a P. Diddy campaign?
Oh, I mean, that definitely was coming from like when we were teenagers.
Back in the day, rock the vote. We should look that up.
We should.
It's a great hashtag. What are the new hashtags today around voting?
I am the worst. I don't understand how hashtags work. Like I get them, but I don't really get them. So
I'm gonna pull up Twitter real quick
hashtags.
because I was a little active on Twitter today around this whole National Voter Registration Day. Vote Ready seems like a big one.
Which, by the way, you can follow us on Twitter.
Oh, there's one other thing I wanted to talk about. Yes, please follow us on Twitter. We are at Funtime Program. We're very active on there, engaging with fun people.
And also posting memes.
Posting memes. We got a little meme lord over here.
I love memes.
One other thing I wanted to talk about, though, this is so exciting. Ilhan Omar, one of the excited progressive candidates, Justice Democrat, I believe.
I don't know if she
Maybe
was,
not.
but I know she's part of the
Squad.
Yeah, part of the squad.
Yeah. Anyway, awesome progressive Democrat from Minnesota. She announced today that the House has passed the Crown Act,
which is so exciting.
I wish I had what that acronym stood for because it's really beautiful. But basically, the Crown Act is making it illegal to discriminate against natural hair in the workplace,
which is what my hair is, natural.
And I believe there are 5 or 6 states now that have passed the Crown Act in those states. California being one of them, New York being one of them. But now the Crown Act has passed the House of Representatives on the national level, and
is a big deal.
Being passed over to the Senate, where I don't really know how it's going to go in the Senate because I don't know if this is necessarily a hugely partisan issue. But what we do know about the Senate is that Mitch McConnell, Senate Majority Leader,
is going to just let it sit on his desk and die until he gets voted out of office.
He likes to bury things. So again, voting this year is so important because of bills like this. The House has
could actually get passed.
The House has passed so many bills. One of them being the unemployment situation. It has now been almost 2 months since the CARES Act expired, the $600 bonus that was going to unemployed people across this country every week to make sure that not only were they staying in their houses and not getting evicted, keeping food on the table during a pandemic where it's not that they're just sitting home and not wanting to work. These jobs don't exist, right?
Where'd they go?
It's been 2 months since that expired, and the House has already passed a bill extending it. It's called the HEALS Act, and it has been held up in the Senate because the Republicans want to slash the amount of money that they're giving to unemployed people because they think that people are just sitting home and not wanting to go to work, which I think is just absolutely absurd. It's so upsetting.
Yes.
And it means that for 2 months now, these people who are unemployed are not able to pay their bills. And we're seeing people now facing eviction for no reason other than the fact that we don't have the right representation in the Senate to enable these things to get passed at the level that has been approved in the House. And it is our vote going into the polls in November that could make the difference in getting that bill finally passed, as well as this pandemic's going to still be going on in January.
Yep.
We're going to need to see another bill passed in January. And we don't want to see it being fought over because the Republicans simply have the power to be able to slash the bill or hold it up.
Yep.
And it's one or the other. So that now I am having a debate with people why it's not the Democrats' fault that they don't want to pass the bill at half the rate that it was at previously.
Right.
So
I mean, if Mitch McConnell just actually got up and did his fucking job.
Well, it's not just Mitch. It's also, the other Republicans in the Senate who are enabling him.
Yes.
But
it's a lot of Mitch.
Of course it's a lot of Mitch. But the only reason Mitch is the Senate Majority Leader is because they hold the Senate. There's a Republican majority. So get out and vote. I mean, there's so many reasons why we need to get our voices heard, and we need to take back the Senate. We need to we need to focus on these local elections as well. So I'm excited for
me too.
6 weeks of voter information that we're going to be looking into, and hopefully doing some really exciting interviews coming up on that topic. We would love to hear from you guys.
Let us know what you think.
Yes.
Follow us on all of our social medias, any of our social medias. Also, you can find us at funtimeprogram.com.
That's correct.
You can listen to us on YouTube or wherever you listen to podcasts.
We just moved the podcast over. We were using Squarespace as the host. We moved it over to anchor.fm, which is a really fantastic podcasting platform. So if you guys are interested in a new place to listen to podcasts, Anchor is great. But here's the best thing. It's still going out to all of the big podcasting sites. There are some podcasting sites I had never even heard of that we are now delightfully listed on. So
wonderful.
Wherever it is that you find your podcast, you can find us there now.
We're there. there.
Fun Time Program. And yeah, social media at Fun Time Program. Engage with us. Let us know what you're thinking. Comment on YouTube. Send us a message on Twitter.
Send us some memes.
Oh, we love memes. Yes. Which memes are you guys finding today that are brightening up your day just a little bit? Send them over. We'll share them on our accounts. And yeah, we're looking forward to hearing from you. And we will see you here in the next one.
Yeah. Have a great one.
Have a great one. Go register to vote.
Vote.
Peace, guys.